So Brooke Barr, she's a mom, and she is also does a lot of public speaking, and she experienced a situation with her daughter, where her daughter was cyberbullied, and so I'd like for her to share her story and kind of help you guys as parents maybe learn from it and see what you can do and what ideas she has to protect your kids. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Rajni. Hi guys, thanks for coming. I'm kind of stuck in my box, but I'm comfortable here sitting in my chair, so I won't walk around nervously. As she said, my name is Brooke Barr, and my story started 2.5 years ago. I have a little girl who is now 14. She attends Perry High School, but when she was in 6th grade, 12 years old, it was the very end of school, social media, and I discovered this account, and this person wasn't very bright. Granted, she was 12, but she used my daughter's first and last name, and so that's how I knew. So once I discovered through my ex-husband and through my daughter that this wasn't her account, then I realized what was going on. And I was set private on Instagram, but I'm the firm believer of follow your children's followers and let them follow you, because they say a whole lot about themselves, and you kind of know the ones that you want to keep them away from. So I had screenshotted it and put it up on my Instagram, my Facebook. I knew it came from Instagram because I was private and because the pictures were taken from my Instagram. And I think my words were, whatever little troll is impersonating my child, you better watch your back and you better take it down, because I will come after you and I will find you and it won't be pretty. That was what I said. So ironically, I didn't realize this until much later, but the little girl had messaged me. She was the very first person that messaged me, and she said, oh, I got one of these messages from Reve. And I said, what did it say? And it said the things that I was allowed to read on the show for Good Morning America. The stuff that they didn't show was, I hope you kill yourself, you're nothing but a, pardon my French, but they went much further with that. So I called the police the next day, wasn't allowed to do anything, went to Instagram, got it shut down, and then back to the story breaking. So local channel, ABC 15, had told the story, and it aired on a Wednesday night, and I woke up the next morning and all of the national stations, New York Daily News, Good Morning America, had picked it up and asked to cover it. And you know, the entire time I wasn't exactly really thrilled about doing it, because it's not something you just really want to put out there, and it was complete insanity for a couple months of my life. But I'm glad I did, because from the very first story, the Attorney General's office had caught it and they were watching it. And lucky for me, it was a big black eye for the state of Arizona, and they didn't like the coverage. They didn't like the bad coverage that was coming at them. So about a month went by and it got super quiet, and a detective called me and said, just wanted to let you know that we got the subpoena that you needed from a grand jury. Already had it in hand, and we're going to find out who did this. Now, fast forward to when I found out who did it. It was a 12-year-old girl that still, I think she doesn't go to school with my daughter anymore, but they went through elementary and junior high together. She's now at a different high school, but they did find out who it was. They showed up at her house, and parents, I've still never to this day heard from the parents. Parents weren't surprised. I recently found out she was adopted, but not that should really matter, but I don't think they really had, they really knew what was going on with their daughter. The stepdad wasn't surprised. I guess she did this a lot. So a year to the day after this had all started, the prosecutor called me and told me that there was just absolutely nothing that they could do to her. Now it's different, because I pressed so hard, because I fought so hard. Now kids can actually get in trouble for this kind of stuff, but it wasn't easy at all, and it wasn't fun going through it. But now, like I said earlier, she's 14 and we have much bigger problems. I actually, as a matter of fact, just got another account shut down last week through Twitter, because somebody at Perry High School has nothing better to do with their time than to spread rumors about a ton of people. And I think this day and age, it's getting to be more common, and we all accept it, and we think, it just is what it is. But there were some pretty vile things said about my daughter, so I got a hold of Twitter, excuse me, and I got it shut down. But I think the biggest thing that I learned from it is that it was something that I could handle myself, and I just kind of have the personality that nobody's going to mess with my kids, but I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I'm glad that I pressed through with it, and it's kind of led me down this path of speaking, and I could go on forever and all night long, and with some of this training that I've done through Chandler Police Department and just some of the different things that I've attended. And but Katie has a ton to offer, so I want to let her speak. But I do want to mention one book, because when I did the class at the Chandler Police Department, they're going to have another one. It's the class is through the Guardian Academy, and an officer, Kevin, help me out, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Tina Balch. Did you guys go? Okay, you were there with me? So it's phenomenal. You can probably speak to it. It's the Guardian Academy is the group, I guess, but it's through Chandler Police Department. It's the entire month of February. It's ours was every Thursday. We were the first class. I think they're going to continue to do Thursdays, but it was 3 hours every night. Invest in it. It's free. Invest in it. The first class will absolutely blow your mind. Completely blow your mind. She can probably attest to that. And then the officer taught us how to use this website that was really phenomenal. I was going to talk about it tonight, but it's just too much. But it's called inteltechniques.com, and you can do a whole lot of spying on people through this, and it's completely open to any of us who want to use it. .com, but you have to know how to use it. If I sent you to that and you start playing around, you'd get so lost. You have to know kind of how to populate and do these certain things. But one of the books that one of the officers had mentioned was Outsmarting Your Kids Online. It's a safety handbook for overwhelmed parents. The author, you can find it on Amazon. I think I got it for $10 or so, is Amber Mack and Michael Bazell. Michael Bazell is the creator of the website inteltechniques.com. It is literally a book that will tell you anything and everything you know about how to outsmart your kids online. So highly recommend that. It's a lot of information, like that class was a lot, but I think I might even do it again. I might even go to the second one just to really retain it, because they discuss tons of different issues. They discuss social media and bullying and cyberbullying and local drug trends and gang trends and just stuff that's really good for for you to have as a parent, the knowledge. And we're all here in Chandler, so it's specific to Chandler, and the police department there is absolutely phenomenal. Chandler does a really, really good job. So, but without further ado, do you guys have any questions? You're more than welcome to ask before I pass it off to Katie. But yeah.
You got a law change?
Yeah, well, there's actually enforcement. I don't know that. I mean, when Dan Abrams was talking about in the clip about the cyberbullying laws, I mean, when I first had called him, I thought it was identity theft, and it wasn't, because in the state of Arizona, identity theft there has to be a financial gain that's being made. So a Cox communication bill, a credit card, something where financial gain is being made. And then after they told me they couldn't do anything, and then I went to Instagram and had it shut down, I did a bit more research, and I came up with the ARS statute on impersonation. And they said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but even as an officer, you can go out and I could take your name and your face and create a page and act as if I was you. So, no, kids are actually getting in trouble for it, and there's only a couple states that are doing it, but they're starting to catch on because of the epidemic, that we're having of everything else, suicide, and that's a whole nother class and series. But yeah, pretty sad one at that. But is that it? Thank you guys for having me.
I'm Courtney McPherson, but Frank and I wrote a book together called YTR, and Frank is a former cybercrime detective and special agent for the Attorney General's office. So if you ever get to actually hear him, he's fabulous. So I am his replacement tonight. I actually live down the road. I have 4 daughters that attend Chandler Unified School District, and I have been a teacher, a middle school counselor, and a secondary school administrator for the last 12 of my 20 years in the schools. So currently I work for a company called the Gurian Institute, and my boss is Michael Gurian. He is a neuroscience researcher and author, and he's written 29 books on the subject of how boys and girls learn differently. So tonight I'm going to lead you through not only internet safety, but why kids do some of the crazy things that we see them do online and what you can do about it. So I'm going to have to move a little bit quicker than normal. In front of you, you should have a packet that I sent Rajani. Inside the packet is an app guide. It's typically in color, but obviously we know our school budgets are slim, so I will show it to you in color. I will show you where you can find it in color. The reason the color is important is that I categorize them by red, yellow, and green. Red being, do not let your children have that, ever. They will try to get you to let them have it. Yellow, kind of, I'm in the middle about, and green, still safe, but any of these apps can be used for good, bad, and ugly. And I have seen schools and grade levels turn upside down. I have had students physically, emotionally, and socially hurt by all of them. And so I'm really passionate about this subject, and I thank you so much for taking your time tonight to be committed enough to be here on an evening where I know you have a lot going on. So without further ado, I'm going to run through my presentation. And I'm going to start with kind of where I, as an administrator, as a mom, saw this happen. So above you, and I'm sorry we can't turn the lights out. This is Laura. Laura was one of my students at Mountainside Middle School. I was an administrator in the Scottsdale and Gilbert School District. Laura was 12 when she came to us and 14 when she left. In 8th grade, she got into sort of a mess with her friendship group, and she aligned herself with a different friendship group. And at the end of that alignment, which was a 1-week period with a new student that came to us, that student had disclosed some really personal information to her. During that time, MySpace.com rolled out, and Laura got on MySpace along with the rest of our school. And there was some cyberbullying that went on, some name calling, some pretty hurtful and harassing behavior. So in order to get out of that, Laura came up with a really grandiose story that she had been sexually assaulted. As she got into the story that was not true, she couldn't get out of this story because online it manifested itself into this huge, big deal. So she ended up coming to school with a kitchen knife that was about this long, and in one of our bathrooms decided to try to commit suicide. Luckily, like most kids do, not only online but in person, they tell somebody, thank goodness. And she told her boyfriend, and so he came to us along with several other students. And thankfully, she was able to continue to be a student, not at our school and not in our district due to the weapon, but she just graduated from ASU with her master's degree in education. So from that story, I said, if this student, who I know to be a very good student, in a very good family that has resources, is struggling with cyberbullying, what are students that don't have resources doing? So that started in 2005. So I have been really passionate about this for about 11 years, and as you can see by your app sheet, it just grows and grows and grows. In 6 months, that app sheet will change. You will see different apps in the green, red, and yellow, and I can't keep up with it, and I'm pretty savvy, so I don't expect you to, but what I will do tonight is outline for you why they do these things, how you can help, and practical strategies that you can go home tonight and implement. So this framework up here is what I do all of my work around. We do a really great job at the school level talking to kids about respecting each other. What we don't do such a great job about is talking about dignity, and what is dignity. And the Latin root of dignity is dignitas, which is inherent worth. Your voice is yours to keep, and your voice is to be heard. All of you moms carried these kids in your bellies for 9.5 months, 10 months, and you did not create human beings for another child to take their voice away, or another adult to take their voice away. So whenever I do student presentations, I do a lot of work around you get to keep your dignity. And maintaining that dignity during student conflict is so important for them to learn on their own. We have shifted this culture of intervening all the time, where kids are constantly looking to adults for what to do. We've got to put the locus of control back to our students and allow them to use those voices, even in elementary, to figure out that yucky and messy stuff. That's what I call social competence, in order to be an adult and launch them from this high school into the real world. They're going to have bosses that aren't nice. They're going to have relationships that don't go well. They're going to have friends that betray them. We've got to start talking to kids about how to get through those conflicts, because what happens in person, as you probably know, manifests itself for 17 hours afterwards and can go on and on and on. So in order to be socially competent and a social justice champion, you have to be media literate and you have to be technology literate. So tonight, my goal for you is for you to walk away with 3 things that you can do at the end of tonight to feel better prepared to help them do that. So this is my framework as a social justice champion. I just came back from Los Angeles from Microsoft headquarters. I sat with college admissions from UC Berkeley, Pepperdine, Stanford, UCLA, you name it, they were there. And I asked them, what are you looking for in our students? What do you want to see? They listed all of these things: consistency, authenticity, evidence, documentation, and integrity. Those things can be displayed online. Our students don't know how. The stuff they put out there, and I will show you examples. I don't know if you'll be able to see them very clearly, but if you've looked at any of your students' feeds, may not be your kiddo, but the stuff that's out there is pretty horrific. It's hurtful, it's sexual, it's sexualized, it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's flipping the camera off. It's very narcissistic in its approach. It is not their fault. They have adults modeling this behavior for them. And if we don't teach them how to maintain dignity online, then those platforms are not going to allow them to get into the college, because 76% of college admissions admitted we Google you and we go deep. We go into all of those platforms to see, is this a child that we want to create into an adult? Is this who we want representing Stanford, UCLA, Pepperdine, University of Michigan, Brown, wherever your kiddo wants to go? So it is our responsibility, not only at the school level, but at home, to put those steel girders and healthy boundaries in place so they know how to do that. The problem is you're dealing with underdeveloped brains. So I'm going to show you a brain scan. So this is what I do during the day. I do teacher professional development and parent development around what is wrong with the teen brain. Why are they acting so crazy? And I think we lose sight of when we were teens. Like, I get calls every day, like, how can he be doing this? And I say to them, let me show you his brain. You know, and if you have a boy, they're a little more impulsive and a little more assertive and a little more aggressive with what they put online as far as language. Now our girls are a little more assertive and a little more aggressive with the images that they share with each other and just out in general. They're very image focused and they use lots of words with each other when they're in conflict. So it all goes back to that dignity. How can I get they're going to have conflict. You want that conflict to happen under this roof as much as possible. You want them to practice conflict. We are exiting kids that get to college and they have no idea how to cope and their resiliency skills are nil. That's not their fault. That is not their fault. And we condemn kids and we look at kids and say things to kids as trusted adults that they shouldn't hear from us. And so in order to buffer that and put this in place, I'm going to give you some tips and some frameworks. So today's teen, brain development, hormones, all of these online platforms go against brain development, basically. Not only the time they're spending online, which if you've looked at brain scans, it actually mimics a cocaine addict. If you take a boy who's been playing a video game for 3 hours, it literally looks on a PET scan, a brain scan, the same as a cocaine addict. Why? The dopamine rush, which is the feel-good chemical that they get from the likes, the followers, and all of that stuff on video games, they love it because guess what? They feel attached, but they're what I call invisible kids. We have 4.0 students that walk through these doors who think that they're attached to friends. But it's an empty void sometimes. It's a very isolating feeling. And they are constantly working kind of a double agent lifestyle. They've got me in my house and what my parents think I'm doing. And then they have me at school and the image I have to keep up if I'm going to keep up with the social group and the pecking order that comes along with that social group. For boys, it looks different than girls. Boys are physical with each other. They explore objects, they explore relationships by moving objects through space. The discipline referrals that would come to my office were not boys chit-chatting with each other and off task, pushing, shoving, took a lacrosse thing and whacked him in PE. Of course he did. He likes to move objects through space, and sometimes those are bodies. That's how boys bond with each other. So we have to start looking not only at how our boys socialize, but how our girls socialize as well. And as we do that for both genders, they will both rise. And so the social framework is social competence, how to flow in and out of different groups with grace, with ease, and with fluidity, to be able to be a band kid, and then sit with the football kids at lunch, and then play with the chess guy after school, and then take care of the special needs club after school. If you don't want that for your child, I'm sad, because that is the best memory that I have personally of high school, of having friends in different groups and having opportunities where my parents forced me to have those opportunities. And at the time, of course, I pushed back. But now I am so grateful as a parent, as a person, for those opportunities to explore that. So let's look at the brain a little bit. Full development of a male brain is 30. So those of you that have anything below 15, they have half of a brain. I'm not kidding. They have half of a brain. They have no prefrontal cortex that is closed decision making. So when you look at them and you say, what on earth were you thinking? And they say, oh no. They mean it, because they don't know. They don't know. Now our girls are about 4 years ahead of them. At age 11, half development. So you look at language arts skills or scores. You look at math and science scores. You'll see a difference in that. Girls take in information, and we have 25% more connective tissue between our right and left brain. That does not mean girls are smarter. That means they just take information in more efficiently, and they're able to take it from here onto paper a little bit more efficiently. So when you're disciplining boys, females use lots of words, and most of our teaching staff is female. So I would say if you're looking at ways when these internet mistakes or any mistakes happen, to get through to your boys, chunk it. It's got to be this, this, and this. For example, teeth, shoes, car. Not a dissertation about what do you do with it, you know. They need you to break it down for them. So in looking at internet and the brain, and you can't really see this image, but the kind of red, yellow, orange, that's the brain on fire. That's the dopamine rush. So the video games, the reason boys especially like video games is they find success there. A kid that doesn't have success in the classroom will find massive success on video games, massive success on apps, because the score keeps going up and you get to reset. You get to move objects through space. You get success. So I have a ton of parents calling saying, he's bombing math or he's bombing language arts, and I don't know what to do. All he wants to do is play video games. Of course he does. His brain's on fire. He's getting a ton of dopamine rush, a ton of testosterone rush, and it feels good. Sitting in Mrs. So-and-so's 10th grade English class does not feel good. There's a lot of words being used in that class, and they're going over my head. I'm not able to produce. After school, I produce on these video games. I'm talking to my friends. I'm on my headset. I have friends in other states. So that is why boys and girls love video games. There's a ton of success. So if they're not connecting at the school level with adults or children, they can find success elsewhere. What I would ask you to do is limit screen time. I'm not going to tell you what is average, what is good, what is bad. What I can tell you is the reason kids can't sleep at night is because all of those chemicals are rushing on them. Plus their bodies are growing and their brain is pruning, which means getting rid of all of the stuff they don't need to refine for what they do need. So you will see sleep patterns changing, you will see aggressive behavior, you will see impulsivity as the brain is maturing. So as we go through and look at the different apps, remember that reward center. It will trump you every time. You will find a text and you will be like, who is this kid? This is not the person I'm raising. You will find a video and it will horrify you. You will read a text from a friend to his and you'll be like, what on earth is going on? That reward center is what's going on. That feel-good place with an underdeveloped brain means we need you to be their frontal lobe. We need you to help them make healthy decisions and be okay if they don't make a good one. Most of my students in my office, when they were being disciplined, said, I just wish my parents would listen. They're so busy telling me, in 1987, when I was your age, well, guess what? 1987 was a really great year, but it looks a lot different than 2016. The note that I passed to Jenny, that only went to Jenny, is now, it could be 3,900 kids. If you tweet out, look at how many followers they have. They are running path interference for themselves all day and all night. And if you don't put strict boundaries in place for them with a family data plan, with some sort of rules and consequences, which is going to take consistency on your part, and it's exhausting, but it's for their health and well-being. These kids are plugged in all day and all night. Yes?
I'm just wondering, any idea on how long after they shut down technology they can like decompress or sleep?
This is just my personal opinion, I would not allow any technology after 9:30 for a high schooler. Now, a lot of them have to use it for homework, and I know they're in a ton of activities, so I'm hoping that they're kind of decompressing by 9:30, but I would not, I would love to say 8:30, but the sleep cycle, especially for boys, is really tough for them. They have a hard time with the serotonin levels falling asleep anyways. If they're getting tons of dopamine from this, that's why they're so escalated. That's why when they walk out of the room and a sibling's like, what's up, and they punch them, that's why. Their brain is literally on fire. I'm not exaggerating. Like, when you look at these brain scans, you have to put these boundaries in place. And yes, they will hate you, but they will love you when they're like 20. Yes. Did you have a question? No? Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So I'm going to zoom through. We talked about one other hormone that you should be aware of is cortisol, stress hormone. When kids get stressed out, cortisol coats their brain and shuts down their emotions. So if you're trying to have a conversation with a boy or a girl, I would suggest water. I would suggest taking a walk and letting them come down. The cortisol drives up when they get stressed. Academics, social, emotional. So if somebody texts them or says something about them on one of these apps, cortisol is all over that brain. And nothing you say or do is going to really penetrate. So again, boys don't do so well with one-on-one facial emotive cues. They do better shoulder to shoulder. Boys are also dominant in their right ear. So if you're talking to their left ear, it's going to take a little bit longer for that information to transfer over. So I always suggest with boys, especially teenage boys, shoulder to shoulder and less eye contact. So chunk those instructions, less eye contact and shoulder to shoulder. They do not like eye contact. And how many moms are like, look at me when I'm talking to you, right? How many teachers are like, he's not looking at me, he's defiant. I had plenty of boys in my office for, quote, defiance. Knowing what I now know, I disserviced them. I did them a huge disservice because I wanted them to look at me. And then me as a female administrator with all my words was driving up the cortisol. He's emotionally shutting down. And guess what? I'm writing him another referral for defiance to authority. So I've got a frequent flyer who is high on cortisol, who might have a dopamine rush, that I am completely overwhelming. So those are just some quick tips as we're going through all of this, because it's really important that you know about the brain, because it's 100% of everything we're talking about. What's important to this age kid? Partying. So Usher called Justin and was like, can you hold the house down for me? Sure. He has an unsupervised party, right? All these people come. What's important to Justin in the interaction with the girls? Anything pop up for you? So what do kids watching this glean? What's important to kids? They've got their phones out, they're having an unsupervised party. The whole song's about one time and you're mine and you're my only one. So for females this age, they're looking at like, I want to be that one. For males this age, they're like, well, if I dress like that, so the slouchy pants and the hat sideways and the hood up, there's some cross-cultural messages there too. So we send some really mixed messages through media and through TV, obviously, that then translate into social media. So when you see your kids posting crazy stuff that does not seem like it matches, that's why, because all of these messages are really confusing and messy. I have a couple other videos, but I'm gonna kind of slide over those because I want to get to the app sheet as well. So when you're looking at these videos and when you're looking at these apps, it's really important to remember what's most important to them is their persona. It is not atypical of them to want to be this like double agent. So a documentary that I highly recommend that you watch is called #Being13, and it's by CNN. I'll show you a little clip of it. It's 45 minutes. I would watch it with your student if you're able. Hashtag, the pound sign, being 13. CNN did it with Anderson Cooper. They interviewed 200 or 300 8th graders and went through all of their social media feeds. So the kids allowed them to follow them for 2 years and could see everything they were doing. And then they shared out at the end their impressions, and Anderson asked the kids some questions. So I'm going to show you a clip of it.
The following is a CNN special.
It's loaded. It's not. It's ready. Yeah. Or just like talk behind your back, because that's how.
Okay, so this is a panel of kids that they followed for 2 years. I want you to listen to what Jonathan says. So Jonathan's parents were then interviewed after this. So there's Jonathan in real life, and then there's Jonathan online. And how he represents himself online, he says, I have to be a double agent. In order to get 15K followers, 15,000 followers, these are the kind of things that I have to post. And so they're outrageous, they're profane, they're explicit, so I'm just putting that out there first. But it's a really good representation of what these kids go through. So you can see how exhausting this full-time job is for them, coupled with athletics, coupled with academics, coupled with parental expectations, coupled with being a brother or sister. So I think Jonathan represents most of our kiddos that are online that you've allowed access to. Certainly those healthy boundaries will help, but I will tell you that there are ways that kids are really savvy to open other accounts that you don't see. One of them is called Finsta, which means your fake Instagram. So they will have an Instagram that you know about and you're following them and you're like, wow, he's so great, right? And then this Finsta is another, let's say his name is Jonathan. His Finsta is like Jonathan12. So you're not following Jonathan12, you're following Jonathan. Why do they do that? It goes back to the reward center. I've got to look like this in order to be accepted to the social group. And for some kids, it's really important. For some kids, they don't really care about keeping up, and so they don't do things like that. But there are certainly app makers that love our students, and teens are the largest consumer of apps. And so the app makers create apps to allow them to be able to do that. Another one that they use is the calculator with the percentage sign. So those of you that have iPhones, it looks like your calculator icon, but when you get into it and you start adding numbers like a real calculator and you put in a password, underneath that pops up a secret camera roll. So for anybody that's exchanging nudes with each other, drugs with each other, texts you don't want anybody to see, screenshots of somebody, a girl sent her breasts to your friend, and then they sent them to you. You don't want mom and dad to see that on the regular camera roll. You put it in your Vault app, which is your calculator with the percent sign. They look exactly the same. If you looked at your phone, they look exactly the same. The only difference is if you start adding numbers, and there's a password, so if they're dumb enough, which they typically are, to use 1, 2, 3, 4, up pops a secret camera roll. So that's unfortunately for them how sometimes we bust kids, but it's unfortunately for us how they hide a lot of things that are going on in their life. And they will take risks, and they will take impulsivity, and they will try those out. Those different avatars, those different personas, somebody else has it, so I have to do it. The peer pressure online is huge. So those are some examples on your Excel spreadsheet that I made for you that I would say the calculator app is in the red because we don't want them hiding images from us. So the school district used black and white, so I can send you the packet if you'd like in color and make that available on our website and on Rajani's too. So I would say those they're called vault apps, so they're secret, obviously. And Officer Quinn, who's the police officer here, I'll have him speak to kind of how they're used at the school level. So I went through a public Twitter. So we're going to talk about privacy settings. This is a student. I don't know her. This was on her profile. This is her in a bathtub after HOCO, which is homecoming. Passed out drunk, supposedly. Now, was she drunk? I don't know. But she's in a bathtub, face down. And this is what she put out on her Twitter. So if I am Alicia and I want to go to Alabama for college and somebody Googles me and finds my Twitter, this is what they see. Kids will not understand the importance or the gravity of that future. Kids at this age see A. They don't see the plus B equals C. You are their C, you are their B. They see A gets me likes, A gets me followers, A gets me that dopamine rush, I feel attached. I've got 45,000 likes on my drunk HOCO picture. And this is a good kid, I'm sure. So good kids make bad decisions. You want them to happen under this roof and your roof, where you can guide and impact those consequences. When you're approaching them about a picture like this, how you handle it will go a long way. If you shame them, they will no longer reach out to you for communication. And shame is kind of a buzzword right now, but kids will shut down and they will stop doing things and showing things to you and communicating with you because all they hear, regardless of how awesome you are as a parent, is I'm a bad kid. You actually want this stuff to happen so that you can have those courageous conversations about, is this how you're representing our family? Is this what kids at school, is this what you want them to know about you? They're going to make the mistakes, but we've got to put healthy boundaries in place and do more education with students about what is a good digital citizen. How do you become a digital leader? How do you post stuff that actually promotes you to get into college and employment? So much talent in this area, so much strength, but they're showcasing some goofy stuff. So we need to help them with that. Here's another post. This kid said, everyone has their own methods of being happy, and it's weed. Does he do weed? I don't know. Jonathan said he didn't. He had 7 weed posts with a bunch of explicit language. So let's say your kid doesn't do this, and you're like, my kid would never do that, right? They're still exposed to it. This is still on their feed. They follow kids like this. You still have to have those courageous conversations with them like, so what do you think about this? Another tip I would absolutely put in place, if you have dinner once a week for every night a week, have a tech talk. Everybody take out their phones. I want you to tell me the craziest thing on your news feed. Talk about it. Tell them what you think. Ask what they think. Ask about the kindest thing they see on their news feed. Talk about that. This stuff is open game for so much rich for families, and we are so busy and overscheduled, and so are our kids. These are great ways to connect with kids about what does your digital platform look like and what do you want people to know about us, about our family, what you're doing in the community. We have so many great kids, especially here at Hamilton. There's 3,900 of them. They're doing great things. We need to teach them how to showcase that. This is their voice, and we want that to be amplified. But remember that brain development is not there. They see the A and not the C. So I'm going to show you a couple more images. Texting, huge. So I don't know if that her picture was taken. That's another thing they love to do. They do goofy stuff. Nothing good happens at a sleepover. I repeat, nothing good happens at a sleepover. They stay up way too late, and I have 4 girls. Nobody sleeps over at our house, and they rarely go anywhere else unless it's a family member, because they stay up too late. Some of them are plugged in, and then they do goofy stuff like this, and this image goes viral around this high school or another one. How on earth is this girl supposed to run past interference for herself? This person is technically distributing child porn. Sexting is huge. Snapchat allows them to do that. Several other apps allow them to do that. Our group texting allows them to do that. So remember what I said about 1987? Our medium was a piece of paper. So you're that person, and you walk in on Monday, and everybody's seen half of your urine. It happens. It turns grade levels upside down. It turns reputation upside down. It's really difficult for these kids to manage school, athletics, activities, family, church, and then I've got this whole other, seriously, full-time job to keep up with. So if you're going to allow them access, you have to have these courageous conversations with them, especially about sleepovers and putting your phone away. If you're hosting the sleepover, take the phone. They go into locker rooms and they videotape each other and post it. They go into bathrooms and schedule MMA fights and tape it. Like, that was the new rage a couple of years ago at the middle school. It's like, we're going to square off in the bathroom, we're going to tape it, and then upload it to YouTube. So then we had video evidence of people, beating the crap out of each other. So sometimes they give us, some good stuff to work with. This one says BFF pipe. So again, going back to drugs. This kid said, when your weed is worth more than your MacBook. He has it, and he's relating to it. Is it, I don't know. Could be his dad. Could be his brothers. Could be his sisters. Could be his mom. Who knows? So again, I just go back to, they sometimes act online like a completely different person. So those conversations have to be ongoing, and they have to be age appropriate, and you have to listen. They will tell you a lot of things. The best information you can get is in a carpool. If you carpool, pretend you're listening to the radio. Don't say a word. You can get so much information, especially out of your sons, by listening to their friends talk about other people and about themselves. The windshield time is huge. Kids do not like when they come home or get in the car and you're like, how was your day? How was your day? What'd you do? Who'd you talk to? How are your grades? They just need to decompress, especially if they're doing this kind of stuff. So it's really important, the listening, along with that massaging of really strong boundaries around what's appropriate and what's not. This kid had a bunch of pills. Obviously, we have a prescription drug issue in Arizona. If you haven't heard, Officer Quinn can tell you about what it's like in our area and what he deals with at the school level. This is horrific, and you probably can't see it, but I don't even know if I could say it out loud because it's so bad. So up here, his kind of tagline is, F snakes, everyone is getting exposed, DM. DM means direct message me. So these apps have the ability to text within the app. So if you take away their texting ability, all they need is an iPod, an iTouch, anything, a friend's phone with texting capability to load the app and be able to text with each other. There are several apps that kids love. Kik is one of them, K-I-K. That's in my red column. It's horrible. WhatsApp, people use that all the time to do drug deals. Kids use it when they get in trouble and they're not allowed to text each other because they can put it on their iPad and text their friends, and it's not on their phone. So if mom and dad took their phone, load WhatsApp on the iPad, they can still text and group text with their friends. Yeah.
That's about my knowledge.
So this is Twitter. Yeah. So this is, watch out guys, because this freshman, so this is Reve's picture that she posted on her Twitter. They copied and pasted the photo onto this person's Twitter and then wrote this about her. So how is Reve supposed to walk into high school the next day and have any sense of how to handle that? She's a freshman. There's 4 grade levels of kids there. She's just starting her high school career. So again, it goes back to that dignity and social competence piece. How do we treat each other? How do we treat ourselves? How do we want to represent ourselves online? And then what to do when this kind of stuff happens. If it's online or in person, it's ongoing, it's frequent. You've asked the person to stop and they don't, then you're looking to Officer Quinn to help you out. You're also looking to administrators to help you out. Our litmus test at the school level, if it's ongoing, it's frequent, you've asked the person to stop. This stuff is like way off the grid, right? But typical, what we call bullying behaviors, parents are constantly asking me, well, when is it, teasing and when is it bullying? That's our litmus test at the school level. Ongoing, frequent. You've asked them to stop and they haven't, and or if it's a physical or direct threat. If they're threatening to kick your butt, if they're threatening to bring something to school, report, report, report. And so it goes back to educating kiddos on when to report, how to report, who to report to. I will have students tell me, well, I told Mrs. So-and-so, she didn't do anything, or I told Mrs. So-and-so, and she actually made it worse. So sometimes we as adults are a little bit messy too, and sometimes we don't follow through at the school level and at the home level. And so we want you to call us out on that in an appropriate way. Not on the Facebook of the world, but in person, in writing, by phone. We need to know this stuff is going on. If you're hearing a kid's name at your dinner table every night, that's frequent, that's ongoing, that's harassment and intimidation. It meets our criteria. If we don't know about it and you swing into our office 8 months later, like, what are you doing? You as a school are failing to protect. Great, I didn't know about it, so I can't investigate. There's a process, there's protocol, there's police officers, there's counselors, there's social workers. We have so many people willing to help, but you have to report. And the stigma around kids, obviously, is if I tell on someone, then I'm a snitch. And so I'm just not going to tell on someone. These events that we've had around this community, kids always tell someone else. When I get requests from news stations about somebody who has taken their life, I don't like to publicize suicide, obviously, as Officer Quinn said eloquently last week. Thank God it's a very low frequency thing that happens, but it has high impact. It touches every student in a school, and it should touch every adult in this community. Obviously, each situation is different, and we're looking at mental health, we're looking at all sorts of dynamics, but at the end of the day, when I scroll through those students' social media, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, call for help. I mean, these kids are saying things that are pretty obvious, like, I don't want to be here anymore, this place, I'm out of here, I just want to die. Like, some are really blatant about it, some are really subtle about it. If, as a parent, you're supervising those news feeds and you're picking up on an uptick and frequency of really negative self-talk, something's going on. Where there's a whisper, there's a scream. And we have to start teaching our kids to recognize those signs too. Not that they're responsible for somebody else's mental health, but these kids tell each other everything. And they tell them fast, and they tell them quick, and they tell them on text, and they tell them on social media. So if we can teach kids to start identifying each other, and what is the difference between telling on someone and reporting a safety issue? And safety is socially safe, somebody's harassing me. Emotionally safe, somebody said something awful about me. And physically safe, somebody's going to do something, they're bringing something to school that's dangerous. Or they're going after school to the park and they're going to, beat up on someone. That's a safety issue. Kids get that. Teenagers are the best campaign managers around. They love themselves so much. And they do this stuff because they are very narcissistic in their self-core. They're still developing their psyches and their self-core. They want to talk about themselves. And they know everything way before we do. So I would encourage you not only to be following your own students, but get to know their friends. Look at their stuff. I'm not saying that you should be following them as a follower on their Twitter feed, because they probably won't. They won't when you friend request, they'll say no. But if you can be supervising those news feeds a couple times a week, you can glean so much information about someone. Whether it's an intimate relationship, your students starting into the dating world, or a friendship, you're hearing a lot about this Jake kid and he's vaping and he's doing crazy things. Obviously, you don't want your students to align with those kiddos, but they're going to be offered drugs and alcohol. They're going to think about the word sex. Like, we got to step into 2016. And they will tell you on these news feeds everything you need to know. So again, a couple of takeaways in front of you on your app guide. So I made it red, yellow, green, but the website where you can find all of these, and they actually do a really nice job, 42-minute long, every single app that's out there currently, they will change. SafeSmartSocial.com parent app guide. If you get on SafeSmartSocial.com and click parent app guide, it will go through every single app. It will tell you why it's green, why it's yellow, why it's red, and it will tell you all about it. One thing about Twitter is that they do allow nudity. Some of these apps do not allow nudity. Another thing about Kik, which is in my red column, Kik is linked to a murder back east of a 13-year-old. A 19-year-old boy who ran track for Virginia Tech, full ride scholarship, looks like a really nice kid. Told her he was 16, she's 13. He said, meet me tomorrow. She crawled out of her bedroom window with her Minion blanket, never to be seen again. Kik is based out of Canada. When they went to do a search warrant on the murder, guess who they had to go through? Canadian officials. It takes longer. So that factors into, obviously, law enforcement and civil litigation when you're trying to get information about what your kids have been engaging in. Same thing with Brooks' case. Obviously having to investigate through forensics and through cybercrimes detectives, having to get IP addresses of those computers and locations. So this is probably my favorite website. The last piece before I show you some real apps is a family data contract. So on our website, so the book I wrote is called YTeensFail.com. I wrote it with 9 other people. If you go to YTeensFail.com to free stuff, there's an example of a family data contract. Have your student come up with 7 or 8 rules that you both agree on. If you're going to hand them a device for $600 and charge $100 a month to your credit card and carry the liability of that, you have to give them some boundaries. What does it look like in your family? What are your values? What are your principles? What do you think should happen when, not if, they make a mistake with the phone? Does the phone get taken away? Do they not get it for a month? Those boundaries need to be set up front so that when that happens, the kids aren't shocked and you're not engaging in this constant back and forth power struggle. Nobody likes surprises. I don't, and they certainly don't, especially with a half-developed brain. They will do crazy things and they will get really upset and they will go sneak around and do things. They actually want the structure. They want the boundaries. So develop a plan. We have one, a baseline for you to look at that works for us. Take it as a baseline, tweak it for you. I can't tell you what your family values. I can't tell you what I think is reasonable for your devices and your phones. I can tell you what a baseline is. So YTeensFail.com, under free stuff, print it out. 2 signatures. The kids sign it, you sign it, it goes on the refrigerator. Something happens, you're like, number 7, let's talk about that. It opens up the conversation and the communication for everybody. And it makes the kids feel better that there's not going to be some surprise in the morning that their phone's gone for a week. As you know, it's kind of their lifeline. All right, lastly, I'm going to have Officer Quinn come up. A lot of people ask me, what's the best parent safety control? You are the parent safety control. But if you would like to put something in place, I feel like some of these Sometimes people put the parental controls on and they think no one's going to stumble on porn. Nobody's going to see a bad word. Guess what? YouTube.com, you can learn anything. How to roll a joint, how to have sex, how to make out. Anything you want to learn is there. So you shouldn't be so worried about all the apps when YouTube provides that as well. So if you're going to lock down your devices, meaning having one of these parental control packages, your phones have it through Verizon, AT&T. Our Pact is a really great app that you can put on. You can actually remotely shut their phones off or not allow access to websites. Our Pact, P-A-C-T, Our Pact, O-U-R, OurPact.com. Circle by Disney, $99 a year. You can set up different profiles for your different kiddos. You might have a 10-year-old that has different restrictions than your 16-year-old, obviously. They all have different features. There's no better feature than you having a family data plan, and then the last piece I'll leave you with, which is a central charging station. Kids are plugged in all night. Remember the brain on fire? The only way that they can unplug and go to sleep and get actual true sleep is if you take their devices and put them on your nightstand in the off position. I don't know how many of you have heard text messages going off 2, 3, 4 a.m. They're up all night long. If we let them. If you have a central charging station, that includes laptops, any device that can text or has technology. And I would also say with the laptops, those should be where the carpet is most warm in your home. They are doing crazy things on laptops. It's not just phones. So if they're studying in their room, it really is up to your trust level. You know, kids are really good at double screens. These parental controls are awesome, but you and your communication with them is what will be the best safety guard for them. And I'll let Officer Quinn talk about kind of what goes on in Hamilton, how he can help. He's a resource. Rajani's here, obviously. Nancy's here to help you. And I would just encourage you, like SafeSmartSocial.com, they are hooked up with Sony and Google, so he updates that app parent guide every 6 months. So keep checking back. Those apps that I talked about, oh, I did want to say, Snapchat and Musical.ly, I'd asked some of you to download them. Musical.ly is like the new rage, right? So get on there. Look at the 9, 10, and 11-year-old girls that are in their bedrooms. Some of those girls don't realize their privacy settings are public. Like, I got on there just as a me, and I could see hundreds, thousands of girls in their bedrooms singing. Super fun. I love music. But they're dancing in their bedrooms, they're gyrating, they're using lyrics that are really inappropriate. And we know there are ill-intentioned men and women out there that are just waiting for that opportunity to align with somebody who's really naive and vulnerable. Thank you so much again for coming tonight. I hope you